This is Sami Callihan, the worldwide desperado, the Callihan Death Machine, and you're listening to Interactive Wrestling Radio.
You're listening to Interactive Wrestling Radio, featuring the Interactive Interview, courtesy of WrestlingEpicenter.com. Welcome to Interactive Wrestling Radio right here on WrestlingEpicenter.com and YouTube. My name is James Walsh, and this is almost our 15-year anniversary, almost to the day. We're staring down 500 episodes, and we started this show on November the 20th of 2002. Back then it was called Trinity Radio. Then guess what happened? There was a wrestler named Trinity, so we had to change that. And we became the Interactive Interview, and look how far we've come. Now we're Interactive Wrestling Radio featuring the Interactive Interview. Who knows what will go by next year? Anyway, I want to welcome everybody to the show. What a week it's been here with the wrestling industry as Impact Wrestling presented Bound for Glory last Sunday. Remember the 5th of November. It was a great show. Not only is it the day that Doc Brown discovered what makes time travel possible with the flux capacitor, but it also was Bound for Glory. With red and white ropes from Canada, Bound for Glory took place out of Ottawa, and we saw the debut of one and only Sami Callihan helping OVE. He was the third man in that picture of the Ohio versus everything picture. And man, I used that line during the interview. You'll hear that in just a moment. Want to take a moment here. I didn't do it before, and there's a reason for it. I don't deal well with death. I don't deal well with it. I don't like it. I don't like talking about it. But I want to dedicate this episode and all prior episodes to somebody who joined our show, and that's Bobby the Brain Heenan. He joined us back in 2003 and 2004 when he was still able to eloquently speak. And unfortunately, the sharpest witted guy in wrestling history had the power of speech kind of taken from him when he had the throat surgery and everything like that. So never really did many interviews after hours, but man, that means a lot to us that we had him on our show. And the loss of Bobby Heenan is a loss of one of the greatest voices and the greatest minds in the history of professional wrestling. So tip of the cap to Bobby the Brain Heenan. I know it's been a couple months, but I don't like to deal with this kind of stuff, so I wanted to do this now. Anyway, I want to invite everybody to check out Impact Wrestling every Thursday night on Pop TV, as well as to catch the replay of Bound for Glory on the Global Wrestling Network app, which is available to download now. It's $5.99 a month. Great thing if you like to watch the classic Impact Wrestling content. I certainly do. I have a DVD collection that would make many jealous, and I also have the app because I love catching up on my Impact. So check that out. Other news was Lucha Underground, my kid's favorite promotion. Mine is Impact. Theirs is Lucha. Is going to be coming back for Season 4. So Sami Callihan, who was Solomon Crowe in WWE NXT, and Jeremiah Crane in Lucha Underground, joins us this week to discuss Impact Wrestling. We do talk a little bit about Lucha, and of course his own wrestling promotion, Pro Wrestling Revolver. Enjoy this one, guys, and thank you all for listening to me babble. With no further ado, I'm going to bring you the interview.
Yo, what's up? What's crack-a-lackin'? This is K Dizzle in the cut. You're listening to the Interactive Interview. Órale, arriba la raza.
Throw some metal, show a little skin. Looking for some trouble if she can get in. Come with me, I know where to go. I know what you like, I know where you want it. Give it the gate, to turn up the master. She won't slow, give it to master.
This is Bobby the Brain Heenan, and if you're smart like me, you'll be listening to Interactive Interview. I do all the time.
Welcome back to Interactive Wrestling Radio. On the Newsmaker line with me right now is a new Impact Wrestling star, a Lucha Underground star, former WWE star, the one and only Sami Callihan. Mr. Callihan, are you with me?
I am with you, man. I actually just woke up. I was on the road for 10 days straight, and I was trying to catch up on some sleep before I leave for New Japan tomorrow, and I got a call from a no-caller ID, and I thought it was either a bill collector or someone trying to kill me. So I was pleasantly surprised when I realized it was you.
Yeah, it's just a guy who's going to chew your ear off for about 15 minutes.
I'd rather that than some sniper be hunting me down that's been put a hit on me. So very pleasant surprise.
All right. Well, pleasant surprises is the topic of the day, because at Bound for Glory, you were the surprise third partner. You were the third man in this picture, as Bobby Heenan would say, when you joined OVE and helped them win the match and retain the tag titles. How have you enjoyed your experience to this point and your debut with Impact Wrestling?
Oh, it was great, man. One of the things I really pride myself on is I like to be unpredictable. If you don't know when or where I'm going to show up, I can legit show up at anywhere, and I think that kind of adds to my aura and makes me cool.
I agree with you. And your name came up recently. We just had Petey Williams on a few weeks ago, and he mentioned that this is before we even knew you were coming to Impact, that he took it really to heart that you told him that the Canadian Destroyer is one of the reasons you ordered the pay-per-views, the Wednesday night pay-per-views for now Impact Wrestling. So just wanted to pass that along to you, that Petey gave you a shout-out even before we knew you were coming to Impact.
Yeah, man, I love me some Petey Williams. I had told him, because he is kind of retired, like semi-retired for a couple of years, and he just recently came back. And I told him, like, dude, like, you have such an opening right now to, like, blow the wrestling world, like, the lid off the wrestling world. Because, like, you don't even realize, dude, the Canadian Destroyer, the move that you made famous, is now being just everywhere on the indies. It's the most used move on the planet now. It's the new super kick. And, dude, you have such an easy written-in storyline anywhere you go, just being like, yo, like, all you kids want to do this stuff? Well, I'm the originator, like, I'm the OG of this shit, like, and now he's coming back and freaking, he killed it at the Impact tapings, and he's really going to blow up again, I think. And he's a nice human being, too, which is always a plus.
He definitely is. I was very pleasantly surprised with what a nice guy he was, definitely. So you mentioned you're headed to New Japan, and you just came from Impact tapings. We got the news about Lucha. We'll get to that shortly. But you're all over the place. I guess my question was going to be, there's been a lot of talk. Joey Ryan's made it a topic of discussion. Cody Rhodes. A lot of guys mentioned that you don't necessarily need to be under the WWE banner to be a wrestler in the modern day and age. What is your take on wrestling outside of WWE these days?
Well, I think wrestling outside of WWE right now is what is the new wrestling boom. And one sec, excuse me, I got sneeze.
Bless you.
Still there? I'm sorry.
I'm still there.
Yeah, so back in the 80s, it was the Hogan era that, like, boomed the wrestling period. In the 90s, it was the Attitude Era. In the 2000s, it was Ruthless Aggression, John Cena that really, like, kind of peaked business again. But now with independent wrestling, it's all these other companies around the world that now has the access to be seen by fans on the internet through social media, streaming devices, and everything else. Like, right now, I truly believe that everything else is what's booming the wrestling period and is making everything better in a whole.
And you were one of the first guys who, requested his release from WWE, which is pretty uncharted waters. A lot of people, up until the time that you did it, wouldn't have done that. They would have, held on with both hands until they were let go. And you were one of the first to do it, and now you're seeing a lot of guys kind of following suit. Do you think you're kind of a trendsetter in that regard?
I don't really think I'm a trendsetter. I just was. Mediocrity is dead with me. I'm not complacent just sitting around collecting a paycheck. It really didn't matter of me being a trendsetter. It was just like, I'm not just going to sit around and collect a paycheck, even though it was a very good paycheck to do nothing. Like, I was ready to go out and show them exactly why they hired a 5'7" kid in the first place.
Very cool. And another product you were part of, I'm jumping around a little bit, but is my kid's favorite wrestling promotion, and that is Lucha Underground. And you played Jeremiah Crane there. Thoughts as a guy who's seen all different styles? You've worked under the WWE banner. You're one of the creative forces behind Combat Zone Wrestling, obviously very different from the WWE. Thoughts on the theatrical approach of Lucha Underground?
Oh, I thought it's amazing, and I think that's the kind of way wrestling is going. I love that style of wrestling. I love to be in a fictitious world that zombies can exist and undead goblins and dragons and time travelers and everything else. Like, I love that part of pro wrestling, like, but making it in a realistic way. I like pro wrestling to have more in common with Game of Thrones than like an actual sporting event. Like, it doesn't change the fact that we're going out there and we're doing some of the coolest things on the planet, and we're some of the best athletes on the planet that can do everything in one take. But, like, the whole back end of it, like, that's the kind of wrestling that I love.
You know, and I'm going to say this, you know why I'm such a big fan of what you do? You don't work quite like everybody else. If you watch somebody like Kurt Hennig, he didn't quite fall and tumble like everybody else does, bump like everybody else does. Sting, very similar, different style of working. And you are just a brutal way that you take it. I don't know how you get up sometimes when you take your falls. What do you attribute to the fact that you're kind of a different type of wrestler?
I always wanted to be different. I consider my style controlled chaos. Like, I've learned that style through a bunch of different influences throughout the time of my career. And, like, I remember one point in my career, I wanted to be a junior heavyweight and I wanted to do a bunch of flips. And then, I wanted to be like a big guy and do power moves. And, I want to be the hardcore guy, do hardcore stuff. I want to be a lucha guy, do lucha stuff. But, like going through those phases in my career, I somehow, like, found the right recipe of what Sami Callihan is, and it just seems to work.
Exactly. And I was referring to the way that you sold the Flatliner from Mil Muertes, and I got to ask you about those matches. Working with Mil Muertes and that story was so well told, but I got the feeling as a fan, and correct me if I'm wrong, that maybe injuries and other things may have changed the direction of the story a little bit heading into the end of season 3. Am I correct in that, or was it pretty much the way it was supposed to be?
Evilise broke her ankle.
Right.
But like, that's like real life. Like, people think that was a character that was a storyline. No, she broke her ankle for real. Like, it sucks, like, because I'm sure maybe the storyline would have went somewhere else, but something happened in a match. She rolled her ankle real bad. She was out for like almost the whole mid part of the season. But I like how the show ended up turning out. Like, it turned out like I had a really, really cool storyline, and they put a lot of faith in me.
Absolutely. With season 4 being greenlit by El Rey Network just a few weeks ago, in fact, just a week ago, what is your take? Are you going to be back with Lucha Underground, or is it pretty much Jeremiah Crane no more?
You never know, man. Like, that's the thing with me. You never know where I'm going to show up. I like to have that secrecy about me. I like to have that kind of aura. Like, the Undertaker freaking never got on social media for years upon years upon years, and that's why he had such a cool aura. Like, sure, I have social media, and I run my mouth a lot, and I have a big presence on that, but I also like to be unpredictable for the fact, like, people don't know where I'm going to show up. Like, one day I'm in California, and the next day I'm in Maine, which is across the country. Like, no one knows where I'm going to be. Like, and I like to keep that aura about me.
You and I you're a little bit younger than me, actually, and you and I kind of grew up, though, watching the same stuff by prior interviews. You reference a lot of stuff that I grew up watching. Combat Zone Wrestling, a lot of people don't realize, started when ECW was still a thing. And here we are, long after ECW would have closed if it started at the same time. What do you attribute to Combat Zone staying afloat and staying this entity that it is with a brand of entertainment that's certainly not mainstream?
It just said it's different. And believe me, man, like, when I took over, like, I'm not the only driving force behind Combat Zone. There's a whole, like, committee of people that I kind of oversee, and we get things going. But Combat Zone, like, no matter what, man, is always going to be in the forefront, even if it's people just shitting on the product. Like, CZW is the redheaded stepchild of professional wrestling, where even if they do something amazing, it's the fun company and the cool company just, like, find something to pick apart on. Or they'll do something ridiculous and get a whole bunch of heat for no reason. Or they'll do something totally, like, off the wall that will, like, go viral and find, like, just upset the wrestling community and someone else. Like, their catchphrase is wrestling fears CZW. It's kind of true, man. Like, they're always going to, like, be in some sort of, like, tabloid-esque news story because they're just a company that everyone loves to pick on. And trust me when I say it's one of the hardest projects I've ever had to try to run in my life. Like, it's its own different animal. Like, I run my own promotion, the Wrestling Revolver,
right,
that's blowing up right now, and it's my style of wrestling. It's a little bit of a melting pot of everything, and that's easy to run. That's easy to, like, get people in the door, and they get a buzz, and like build the reputation. CZW has been around for years, and they've always been, like I said, that stepchild. By far the hardest thing I've ever had to try to run in my life, but I'm going to continue like chopping away to like try to make that company even more relevant, because one of the things with CZW is they should have blown up more years upon years upon years ago. They've had so many opportunities. They were in the movie The Wrestler as like a main featured like company. They've had a Vice documentary about them. They've been on multiple television shows that people have featured them. And it just seems like there's always like one thing holding them back that won't allow them to like just click into the mainstream. And that's what I'm trying to do. Like, and like the haters, like they can continue to hate but CZW is going to continue to be around like it always has been, and like create new fans. Like it goes in cycles. Like, and that's what I'm trying to do right now. But I'll tell you right now, it is the hardest thing I've ever had to do in my wrestling career is try to run Combat Zone Wrestling. But I'm going to continue to do it because I love CZW. CZW was one of the companies that really like noticed me and gave me my first opportunity. And people don't realize that if it wasn't for CZW, there wouldn't be Dean Ambrose, there wouldn't be Luke Harper, there wouldn't be pretty much everyone, Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn, like Chris Hero, Claudio, everyone came through CZW at one point in time. And like, that's one of the things, like, even though people want to harp on the product, like they can't deny that that's where people get noticed and that's where people really find themselves. Drew Gulak, Rich Swann, Leo Rush, the Adam Cole, the list can go on and on and on and on and on.
Absolutely. And, you know, you mentioned redheaded stepchild of wrestling, and I got to tell you, I've been a fan of pretty much everything except WWE since about 1993. I don't know why, but I kind of just switched off. I don't know why that is, but I've just been a fan of everything else. And one of the things that has surprised me is the new company, your new home, Impact Wrestling, is continually treated like the redheaded stepchild on the internet. Like it seems like the reporters almost go out of their way to say something negative about a product that is really, really good. What is your take as a new guy in the company of the desire to bash Impact Wrestling?
Well, the first week I was there, man, like it's pretty badass. Like they're giving us the opportunity, and now like I think the big thing is like management hasn't always been the best. Like it's kind of like what the best way to describe it is like if you were a fan of WCW back in like 92, 93 when it was going through that phase where people were running WCW that wasn't wrestling fans, that didn't know wrestling, but like thought they're like, well, I'm going to run this company, I'm going to do what I want. Like I kind of like contributed to that. That's kind of where like TNA was for a while, but now they have smart people on top. They have guys that were on top when TNA was at their best. Like now Scott D'Amore is majorly helping with the company. Sanjay Dutt, majorly helping with the company. Abyss, majorly helping with the company. And like these are guys that like helped TNA become amazing when it first was amazing. And now these guys, like, change doesn't happen overnight. Like, but these guys are putting plans into motion that's like slowly changed TNA back to what it was. And I think in the next like year, like TNA is gonna like completely pull 180, and like people are really gonna start noticing it again.
I hope that's true. I hope that's true. And you're going to be having a major event, a major match on an upcoming Impact. You reported it. You actually posted it on Twitter that it's the first time that a 6-man no-rope barbed wire match is going to air on Impact. What can we expect from that match?
No, just the first time a no-rope barbed wire match will ever be shown on national television, like on broadcast national television. It's been on pay-per-view once, but it's never been on national television. So, like, it truly is, like, history. And it just happened to be 6 of us going in there and going at it.
Is it something you're looking forward to the Impact fans getting a chance to see?
Absolutely.
All right. A couple more questions, then we'll let you go. I'll ask you about Pro Wrestling Revolver at the end, but final question about Impact. Thoughts on going forward with Impact Wrestling? What do you hope to accomplish in the company? Are you looking towards singles gold?
Single, 6-man, tag team, like, I really don't matter, like, to me at this point, because it's pretty, like, badass at the end of the day that right now I could be on national TV with my absolute 2 best friends on the planet. Like 2 guys that are my absolute brothers, and Dave and Jake Chris. Like, I don't care what I'm doing with them. as long as I can continue to do stuff. Like, I remember seeing one of the first pictures of us coming out as OVE together and, like, almost getting in tears, like, because, like, we're three messed up kids from Ohio that, like, have, like, went to bat for each other and had each other's back when we don't really have family. None of us really have family. Like, we're each other's family. And, like, it's really cool to see that, like I said, three messed up kids from Ohio are now on national TV together changing the wrestling world.
It's very cool. And they came out of nowhere to some extent. I mean, I was not as aware of them as obviously I was aware of yourself. And, man, these guys are really polished as a tag team. They're really, really a good
Dude, here's the thing that people don't realize about them. These guys have been a part of a lot of major stuff. Dave and Jake Chris broke out kind of before I did. They were one of the first tag teams. They used to go by Irish Airborne back in, like, the early 2000s up until like 2008, 2009, 2010 when they became OI4K, and they were one of the first people ever offered a Ring of Honor contract, and Dave Chris blew out his knee and was out for almost a year and a half, and that kind of messed that up. And then at one point they were going to get signed to WWE, and one of them got hurt, and that happened. And then just every little thing that could ever happen to those guys always went wrong. And, like, now finally, like, everything's come together. Before I came back to the Indies, Jake had actually retired. Like, he was having his retirement tour, and we all talked him into staying. And, like, we, like, kind of revamped our whole selves as a unit together, and we've been off to the races ever since.
Absolutely. Final question for you is going to be about your own promotion. You know, Petey Williams mentioned that you said that in your first two matches you have 8 Canadian destroyers, but tell us a little bit about Pro Wrestling Revolver. What can we expect from that promotion?
Pro Wrestling Revolver, I like to put it as, like, it's a fun company. It's I like to consider it like the hot topic of wrestling. Like, it's colorful, but it's dark, and it's grungy at the same time, and it's truly a melting pot of every style of wrestling. Our shows are just flat out fun. Every show has a different roster. Sure, we'll have some of the same guys on the show, but the majority of the time, there's 10 new people debuting every show. We don't really run storylines. Everything is its own cohesive unit in one show. The storyline starts on the show, it ends on the show. So, like, everything its own volume. You can just put in any DVD and just understand what's going on because it's only happening on that show. And we show every different type of wrestling. We bring in wrestlers from Japan, Mexico, America, Canada, all different styles. Just our last show alone, we had Matt Riddle versus Jeff Cobb, which is a technical wrestling, like, wet dream for most people. We had 2 Combat Zones guys, like one of the first crazy death matches in Iowa. Just give people another alternative. We had A.R. Fox versus Daga from Mexico, which is like a lucha masterpiece. We had me versus Jack Swagger, which is just a rough and tumble go get 'em. We had a 8-man ladder match with 4 of the coolest teams out there, with World's Cutest Tag Team, Joey Ryan, other people. We had Brian Cage versus Shihiro Iri from Japan. Like, I could truly be that buffet of wrestling that, like, you're not going to see one style match from my shows. You're going to be able to just come in and, like, there's going to be something for everyone, and you're never going to get bored because you never know what way the show's going to go.
Very cool, very cool. Well, I promised you that would be the last question. I did lie. I do have a favor to ask of you. Do you mind if I ask for a station ID and just say this is Sami Callihan and you're listening to Interactive Wrestling Radio?
Sorry, I keep sneezing and coughing, man. I've been out on the road for a while, but Interactive Wrestling Radio. Yeah, I can do that.
All right. Do you want me to do the Wayne's World countdown thing?
Sure.
All right. We'll get going in 5, 4, 3, 2.
This is Sami Callihan, the worldwide desperado, the Callihan Death Machine, and you're listening to Interactive Wrestling Radio.
The Wrestling Epicenter has been around since 2002, and in that time, all of these guests, everybody pictured, has been on our podcast. We're more than just a radio show, though, so check out WrestlingEpicenter.com for all your wrestling news and needs.